Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. My name is State Representative Bill G. Schuette. I have the honor of representing Midland and Gladwin counties in the state legislature. And today we're talking about serious issues. And being a member of the state legislature, debating policy, legislating, it's a serious business. And our state is facing some critical issues. Our restaurant industries and small businesses are facing serious issues. But the reality is that Michigan Democrats in our legislature, they are not serious, and they're not taking these issues seriously. They are once again failing to address what is a looming cliff facing our restaurant workers and small businesses across our state. So we have hardworking, gritty restaurant workers like those here working at Molasses that rely on a tip system to help pay their bills and earn a living. They also rely on a realistic earned sick time policy and leave policy. And all of that is at risk come February 2025. Our tip system, literally hundreds of jobs from across our state are at stake. But instead of debating solutions to these issues, where there's real, tangible legislative fixes on the table, Michigan Democrats are refusing to consider these issues and instead are passing legislation to give taxpayer-funded $500 credits for e-bikes. They're passing legislation that will jeopardize the health of our state police pension system, and they're even debating legislation to put tampons in boys' restrooms. Listen, we had an election last month, and Republicans won. And we won in part because we listened to our constituents. We listened about the issues that are facing our state, and we promised to work on and deliver on these issues in Lansing. Come January, there's a new sheriff in town. There's a new party that's in control of the state house. And I promise the workers here at Molasses, I promise small businesses across our state, and my colleagues here, we're going to be serious about getting to work and solving these issues, presenting solutions to this critical issues facing Michiganders. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague here, Mike Hoadley. Matthew Beerline and Jerry Nayer here are all here to also contribute to this discussion. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I'm State Representative Mike Hoadley from the 99th District. And to reiterate what my colleague, Representative Schuette is saying, is this is a looming disaster for small businesses. And this isn't just about tip wage workers. This is everything from the service and hospitality industry to small manufacturing to even large manufacturing, right on through to farming. This is going to touch every industry in the state of Michigan. And for those that seemingly recognize that if you increase taxes or tariffs on foreign products and that's going to get passed along to the consumer, this is going to affect every consumer in the state of Michigan because those costs are ultimately going to get passed along to us. This is a disaster for our state and it needs to be solved before February. And I'm proud to stand with my colleagues to bring those fixes to the legislature starting in the first term. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to turn it over to Representative Jerry Nayer.
Thanks. It's something that people haven't grasped yet, especially on sick leave. That affects everybody, regardless of your employer, regardless of your ownership in the company there. It's going to make it challenging for staffing. It's going to make it challenging for accounting and tracking these mandatory paid leave hours that we're going to have to continue or that are going to need to be tracked and recorded. And it's just going to make it a logistic nightmare. It's going to raise the cost, and it's definitely going to first impact our smaller businesses and take those hours and money that they could actually pay their employees, and it's going to shift that over to having to cover themselves for extra staffing and other hours that they have not even been able to account for yet. And so it's eventually going to result in a loss of jobs and a loss of small businesses. It's nothing that is necessary. It's something that our smaller employers need to have that flexibility on staffing, and this is just going to take it out of their hands and make it more difficult for them to be profitable and eventually drive several of them out of business. I'd just like to think that we could work this out, but our legislature right now doesn't even have it on the books there to be discussed. So we've decided not to participate in any other thing that they're bringing forward because all that can be worked on next year. This is an immediate problem that needs to be solved. Obviously, we're not going to be able to do it before the end of the year now, but to the Republicans in the House there, it's our #1 project coming up this coming year. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Matt and have him make a few comments.
Thank you, everyone. I'm Matthew Bierlein. I'm the state representative from the 97th District. That's parts of Tuscola, Saginaw Bay, and Genesee counties. One of Michigan's main industries outside of manufacturing and agriculture is tourism, and I represent the largest tourist destination in the state of Michigan. A large part of that district is restaurants and small businesses that support that tourist industry. These laws that were not legislated, they were put in place by the courts, and they were not stuck with the original ballot initiatives that were presented, are going to not just harm small businesses, but even the largest employers in those areas. So, when you think about visiting Frankenmuth and what that means for a place like Bronner's or the Bavarian Inn or Zender's, this is a huge impact on those businesses that can't just be, fixed by ignoring it or just letting these new laws go into effect. So we took a stand on Friday last week. We said we're not going to participate with this current administration until we fix these issues. We had been promised for months that this was going to get done in the lame duck. We were promised last week that it was going to get done by the end of the week, and then it was not. It was not presented. There was no negotiation. There was no agreement, and we just said we're not going to do this anymore. That isn't the way that we're going to do things next year. We're going to keep our word. If we say we're going to get something done, we're going to get it done. And we are going to take care of the small businesses and the restaurants and the tipped workers that rely on those wages in the state of Michigan. So with that, I'm going to bring Bill back up, and I think we're going to take questions. But thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you. Any questions?
You mentioned, many of you mentioned the fact that this is at a stalemate at this point. Nothing's being done in our state government at this point. Democrats would obviously be upset by the fact that you folks are not being represented daily inside the chambers. Your thoughts on what's going to happen continuing going forward here? I mean, obviously, we just have a few days left before the end of the year, but it doesn't sound like anything's going to get accomplished in the state.
No, I mean, this is a case of failed leadership, and it's a case of failed leadership from Michigan Democrats in the state house, and that's a reason why you're not just seeing Republicans express their frustration. You've seen in really something I've in my time in politics never seen this cacophony of negative comments criticizing the leadership of Speaker Joe Tate, who really has failed to deliver on a host of legislative promises, most pressing and most critical being the tipped wage and earned sick time issues. So Michigan voters should be frustrated. Michigan voters should be upset. And I know a lot of restaurant workers and small business owners that are upset as well. And that's why I think we had an election. That's why there was a clear mandate given to House Republicans to lead on this issue. And we'll get results and we'll get something done come January.
Will you speak to some of the fact that some of these workers that we've kind of skirted around here a little bit? I'm sure you've talked to many business owners in the last year or so that this is kind of come to fruition. Speak to the fact of what you've been hearing from them and frankly, some of them, I think you mentioned, Jerry, that possibly some of them could possibly close in 2025.
Yeah. Well, I've talked to most of my restaurant owners in the Isabella and Gratiot County area, and I've talked to even more employees. They're going to go away from the regular waiter and waitress coming to your table. You're going to come into the front door, place your order at the counter, and then basically wait for your number. They just simply won't be able to afford that mandatory minimum wage to pay all their workers and to give the same service as before. So there's going to be cuts, and they're just going to downsize their staffing. And the employees that remain, or staff that remains, is probably going to see that their income comes down, because most of the staff or waitress staff in my area are making closer to $30 an hour on a good weekend. You take them back down to 15, maybe 18 at best. they're they're taking a severe cut in income, and suddenly that job that they're making a full-time living at, they're going to have to be looking for another job to fill in that gap. So yeah, it's just going to be a whole different approach to the staffing system what you see in your restaurants, and it's going to make it as the chains will be able to adapt, but the smaller independent owners, they're going to have a real difficult time and probably start shutting doors, within a year, I bet.
So Rick, airline, you said you were promised in session that this would go under. Who promised you what, and how did that deal fall apart?
So we've been promised by Dem leadership that they were going to work with the business community to come up with a result that everybody could equally agree upon for both the paid sick time and the tipped wage. To preserve the tipped wage credit, it would probably mean that the minimum wage would go up faster than the original 5-year plan, and that we were going to come to a workable agreement on what that sick time policy would look like moving forward. That was promised. That's been being negotiated on between the House and the Senate Democratic leadership, because they're the ones that have to bring it up, as well as the business community, so the Small Business Association, the Michigan Chamber Restaurant and Lodging Association. And they've been working on that since July when this ruling came out. We were continually told that we're going to work on it through the election, and then after the election it's going to come up. And then since we've been back in session after the election, it has been consistently, we're close, and then the last week it had to be voted on by Friday to fit into the legislative calendar for the rest of the year. And we were told it's going to happen. And on Friday, we got to Lansing, and it was not anywhere on the agenda, and there was no deal, and we were told by the speaker that it would not come up.
Why? Why did it what's the change of heart?
I think he's unwilling to have the political courage to protect our restaurant workers, and you can see the interest groups that are opposed to fixing the tip credit. And I think they're more interested in catering to those special far left interest groups than they are in delivering and protecting restaurant workers' jobs. And that's sad. And this isn't a process we came to lightly, right? This is a long road that took us to where we are here, and it's a series of broken promises. And it's unfortunate that they would walk away and really spike the football in the face of restaurant workers.
So what did you guys bring to the table? You said that there's a resolution you're going to work on. What are you asking for? You keep saying that there needs to be different solutions. What are?
Yeah, restoring the tip credit, and that would probably involve a raising of the minimum wage, and that's a reasonable solution. There's something where you could put that on the board today, Dave, and you'd probably have 70 votes in a 110 member chamber, maybe even 80 or 90, and unfortunately. The speaker decides what gets to go on the board and what doesn't. And I know that next legislative session, we're going to have a bipartisan solution, because that's what it's going to take in divided government to deliver on this. Because I think most Michiganders don't want to pay $25 for a quick serve hamburger, right? And that's the reality that we're going to be facing unless we solve this issue for our restaurant workers.
So that solution is going to come from both sides of the aisle, and it just needs to be presented.
Yeah, come January, we're going to have a Republican-controlled state house, a Democrat state senate, and a Democrat governor, right? So any policy that's enacted is going to need to be bipartisan, but policy also is going to require leadership. And what we're not seeing right now in the state house is leadership. What you will see come January is bold leadership on again the issues that helped deliver a majority for the House Republicans in the last election.
You mentioned far left special interests, and two things straight up. One, there's been a lot of bipartisan rhetoric on this about fixing this. Everybody claims they want to fix it. And so who are the interest groups on the other side, and do they have the ears of people in the legislature or the executive branch? The second thing is there any kind of group representing servers, wait staff, and where do they stand on this issue?
Absolutely. I mean, we had, 700 tipped wage workers, restaurant workers, a group called Save My Tips that came down to the Capitol, speaking forcefully in favor of restoring the tip credit. On the other side, you see this group called One Fair Wage, which is, backed by Mark Brewer, the SEIU, and the UAW, which are really standing in the way of any type of bipartisan negotiation. And that's unfortunate. But there's the old adage that Nero fiddled while Rome burned. What we're seeing right now is the Michigan Democrats passing e-bike credits, while our restaurant workers are facing a fiscal cliff, and that's really unfortunate.
Can I do one more? We are in the lame duck. It's not clear there's going to be another day of legislating. Do you have any thoughts, anybody, on the 2-year period of the trifecta and what was passed in terms of prevailing wage, right to work, a lot of corporate welfare, quite a bit of, lots of deductibility of union dues, all that sort of stuff?
I would, yeah. I mean, generally, yeah.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I think the last 2 years have been the most anti-business period in Michigan's history, and the reverberation from that is going to take years to fully work out. But we're hopeful to be able to cut back on some of those things next year. But as Rep. Schutte stated, we don't have the Senate and we don't have the governor's office, so peeling back some of those things won't happen this term. But what we can do is get state spending under control and work on that moving forward, so that 2 years from now, hopefully, we can fix some of these business things as well.
One more question, maybe. Or if that's it, thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you, everybody.